Hi, I'm Hardik Bhandari and I welcome you to the first session on the IELTS examination. In today's session, we will look at the structure and the breakdown of the IELTS itself. IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System, and there are two kinds of examinations on the IELTS that one can take. One is the Ielts General and the other is the Ielts Academic. The general examination needs to be taken for candidates who aspire to settle into a foreign country or in a country where the native language is English. Whereas IELTS Academic needs to be taken by candidates who wish to pursue education in a foreign country or in an English speaking country. The IELTS is designed in a manner to test one's English proficiency across the four aspects of listening, reading, writing and speaking, and the exam is also designed in the same manner, which has 4 sections. The way the exam takes place is the first 3 sections of listening, reading and writing take place on the same day, and this would be the test date of your examination. The speaking test is held on a different day. The exam day for speaking could have a range of 7 days before or after the test date, and thus it may so happen that your speaking test is conducted just 1 or 2 days before or after the examination, or could be up to 7 days before or after your examination. Now, having looked at the nature or the conduct of the test itself, let's look at the individual sections of the exam. The first section in the exam is the listening section. The time limit for this particular section is 30 plus 10. Now, I know 30 plus 10 is 40. However, there is a reason why I have specifically written this separately. There are 4 tasks that need to be solved on the listening section. The way it happens is, for each task there is an audio that will be played for you to listen to. Each of these audios could be further broken down into 2 or 3 smaller sections, and for each task there will be about 10 questions. And you need to write down the answers of those audios or those questions based on the audio at the same time while you are listening to the audio, as there is no repeat, there is no pause or there is no playback on the IELTS examination. Each audio will be played only once. And it is important to note that the level of difficulty increases with every task. So thus, and since there is an increasing order of difficulty, the first task or the first audio on the listening section would probably be the easiest. Task 2, the level of difficulty will rise a little further, and so on and so forth, with 4th being the most difficult task on the examination. Thus, it is worthwhile to remember that there is an increasing order of difficulty on the examination. As discussed, there are 10 questions for each task, and thus the total number of questions are 40 that you need to solve on the IELTS listening section. Now, the reason why this 10 minutes is written is that once you have answered or once you have written down all the answers on your question paper and all the audios are complete, you will be allotted or you will be given 10 minutes during which you will need to transfer all those answers onto your answer sheet, and thus you have this additional 10 minutes. Please remember, do not forget to transfer these answers onto your answer sheet. Just writing them down on the question paper will not help. And I have had a few experiences of students who missed transferring those answer sheets on the answer paper itself, and which has resulted in them losing marks. The next section on the IELTS examination is the reading section. The time allotted for the reading section is 60 minutes. And this is where there is a difference between the IELTS Academic and the IELTS General examination. We will see how. There are a total of 3 tasks on the examination for both IELTS Academic and IELTS General. For the candidates taking the academic examination, there will be 3 passages of roughly about 1000 words each. And there will be about 13 to 17 questions based on each of these individual tasks or individual passages. And thus, the total number of passages that one needs to solve on the academic examination is 3. Now, for the general examination, there again are 3 tasks only. However, each of these individual tasks is further divided into 1 or 2 or 3 small passages. And thus, your task 1 could be bifurcated into 3 passages, task 2 could be bifurcated into 2 or 3 smaller passages which could be different, and task 3 would be similar to a passage which appears on the IELTS academic, and it is one long passage of about 1000 words, and you will be expected to solve about anywhere between 13 to 17 questions on the same. So thus, in all, on the general examination, you may solve somewhere around 6 small passages with or including one long passage. The total questions for both the IELTS academic and general remain the same at 40. And thus, it is important to note that since we have only 60 minutes, for each question we have only 1.5 minutes per question. And thus, the speed at which you read is very, very important on the reading section. And we will be tackling the same in our subsequent sessions. The third section on the IELTS examination, academic or general, is the writing section, for which the total time allotted will be 60 minutes. There are 2 tasks that any person needs to solve on the IELTS writing task. And again, there is a slight difference for people taking or candidates taking the IELTS academic versus the IELTS general. Let's look at the 2 tasks and understand this difference. There are 2 tasks, task 1 and task 2. The task 1 of the examination is different for the candidates who are taking the academic as against the candidates taking the IELTS general examination. Now, what happens on the academic part is that you might be given certain graphical information. It could be a pie chart, it could be a bar graph, it could be a line graph, it could be a table or an image or a map, and you will have to understand certain information based on that graphical information, and you would be expected to write a report based on the information provided. With regards to the candidates taking the general examination, one would be expected to write a letter. Now, this letter could be a formal letter or an informal letter, or it could also be a semi-formal letter. Now, the point to be noted in this particular task or task 1 is that irrespective of academic or general examination, you will have to write a report or a letter of at least about 150 words, and thus there is a minimum word limit that one needs to fulfill. And for both the academic and general, as I said, the minimum word count needs to be at least 150 words. If the total number of words is less than 150, then you will not be able to get the desired score on the IELTS examination, because there is a minimum number of words that they expect you to write on. Typically, although IELTS does not make that distinction, the time to be taken for this particular task is about 20 minutes. One typically should not try and exceed this time. Task 2 requires one to write an opinion-based essay. Now, in this particular task, there could be a topic that could be provided to you, which could be pertaining to something which is around us. It could be on any topic ranging from arts or business or communication right up till geography or history or space research or space exploration as well. However, one is not expected to show certain specific knowledge or showcase any specific information or knowledge on the same, and thus a general idea about any particular topic would suffice. One needs to write an essay of at least 250 words on the writing task 2. This is again, there is a minimum number of words which one is expected to write, and writing an essay less than those number of words will result in losing marks, or will result in not getting the expected band of the examination. Again, the time to be taken for this particular task should be about 40 minutes. Now, again, IELTS also sometimes suggests that you should take 20 minutes for task 1 and 40 minutes for task 2. However, there is not a yardstick, or that is not a must-do thing. However, in our experience of dealing with students across the past 7 years, we've experimented with different time frames, wherein you could have taken 15 minutes for this and 45 minutes for this, 25 minutes for task 1 and 35 minutes for task 2, but those combinations have not worked. and thus our advice would be to stick to this time limit of 20 minutes for task 1 and 40 minutes for task 2. Which brings us to the last section of the speaking examination. Now, speaking, as we all know, is held on a different date. There is no specific or a set time limit, but your speaking task could go on for about 12 to 15 minutes. The speaking task is nothing but an interactive discussion or a conversational discussion about a few tasks based upon the kind of tasks which are asked. There are 3 tasks on the examination, and now let's look at the breakdown of the 3 tasks. The first task is about yourself. So you could expect to be asked questions pertaining to yourself or about yourself. Do you work? Do you study? What do you do in your free time? Tell me something that you do in your holidays. Tell me something about your family or neighborhood and whatnot. Anything and everything related to you. And typically this task goes on for about 3 minutes. It could be a little more, it could be a little less. The second task on the speaking examination is an experience-based task. You will be given a placard or you will be given a piece of paper on which there will be a certain task that will be mentioned. That particular task or question would be about a certain experience that you might have had. And the way that one needs to attempt this task is there will be a total time of 1 plus 2 minutes. The reason I have written 1 plus 2 minutes is that once you are given that particular paper with the task, you will have 1 minute wherein you can make notes and prepare and organize your thoughts and structure them into what you wish to say. At the end of that 1 minute, you will be expected to speak on that particular task for almost 2 minutes or for about 2 minutes. You need to remember that you should not stop anywhere in between, and you should speak at length about that topic, addressing the different aspects of that question or that particular topic itself. Which brings us to the last task on the speaking section, which is an opinion-based task. Now what happens is, related to the topic or the experience which was mentioned in speaking task 2, you might be asked certain generic questions or general opinion questions that you might have on that particular topic. For example, if task 2 was about a memorable journey that you have made, the questions that could be asked on task 3 could be something like, do you think more and more Indians are traveling abroad? Do you think the tourism industry is changing in India? Do you think more and more tourists are coming to India? Do you think the government is doing enough to boost tourism in India? So on and so forth. Now again, you need not quote or you need not showcase specific information or knowledge, but a general opinion is sufficient. And again, for this particular task, the time taken could be for about 4 minutes. What is important for the speaking tasks in general, or something that you need to remember, is that no matter how silly or straightforward or simple the question is, one thing that you are expected to do for any particular question on this task is to elaborate. Just answering in one-liners or in one words or one statements or one single statement will not really help, and to score more you will have to elaborate on that particular idea or question, because they are essentially testing you for your speaking task. We have now seen the breakdown of the Ielts examination. We also understood as to how there is absolutely no difference on the listening and the speaking sections of the examination for both the Ielts Academic as well as the Ielts General. However, there is a slight difference on the reading section as well as the writing section in terms of the kind of tasks or the kind of passages that will be asked on the Ielts Academic are a little different from the Ielts General. Also in the writing section, there is a difference in the task 1 of the writing task, wherein for those taking the academic exam need to write a report, while those taking the general exam need to write a letter. The task 2 of the writing section still remains the same. Having looked at the structure of the Ielts examination, we now move on to our Ielts preparation, starting with the reading section. The reading section is one of the most important sections on the examination, as well as reading skills are very important for your overall language proficiency. In our next session, we will look at certain essential reading skills that one must acquire to perform well on the Ielts examination.